Hey guys, hearty welcome to episode number 43. Pavan Bhaiya and me, we meet again today. I think it's a long overdue. We were kind of having multiple discussions on what's happening on WPL and also on the India vs Australia ODI series before the men's IPL pretty much kicks off this month. Nonetheless, here we are with a review of what necessarily happened in the women's IPL, the first edition, which has been a great massive success. And then we'll of course drift on to the India vs Australia series, which Australia won quite comfortably, if one may say so. Hello, Pawan Bhaiya, how are you feeling?
I'm doing good, Ravi. Hope you're doing well as well.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So, getting on to the Women's Premier League and the first season of it, I think it had some riveting action over a period of 3.5 weeks. And I think all the noise and all the hype has lived up to its billing, I would say. And it's been a very entertaining first season that we have got to witness as part of this new initiative by the BCCI. Like I mentioned, this league was long overdue once the IPL had started, and there were a whole host of other women leagues like the 100 and the Big Bash. So it was time for the BCCI and the Indian Cricket Fraternity to have a league of its own. And I would say we got to saw great amount of quality cricketing action across the 22 games that played. And in the end, we saw the Mumbai Indians coming out as deserving winners because they were the most consistent sides, consistent side among all the five teams in due course of the tournament. And I think the biggest takeaway has been for the uh, established Indian cricketers who are already playing at the highest level, and for the youngsters to rub shoulders with the who's who of the international game, especially the young Indian girls when they played along with their heroes that they saw on television from their own country and also from the likes of Australia, England, South Africa, New Zealand would have been an eye-opening experience, and that is only going to hold Indian women's cricket in good stead going forward and be a sort of a supply line to the national team, just like the IPL has done for the men's game. And coming to, just a brief overview of the tournament, we got to see a lot of aggressive cricket. It was obviously played across two venues due to logistical reasons, and the tournament, right from the announcement followed by the auction, all being done in a jiffy. So they decided to, organize the matches in Mumbai across two venues, and hopefully they can, move to a more precise home and away format come the next season. But we got to see some huge scores and hitting in due course of this tournament, and it just goes on to show what level women's game has reached the world over. The two best teams qualified for the final, Mumbai Indians, like I mentioned, and then the Delhi Capitals, who I personally believed were the favorites before the tournament started because of the team they conjured up during the auction. But I think the star players for Mumbai, especially the likes of the captain Harmanpreet Kaur, Natalie Shiverbrunt, Haley Matthews, the likes of Saika Ishak, all played wonderfully well during the course of the tournament and held their nerves. Similarly, with the Delhi Capitals, they were led by their inspired captain Meg Lanning, who is pretty much an established captain and the most successful captain till date in the women's game. And when she was marshalling their resources, it was absolutely brilliant to see her perform, being the orange cap holder as well, and the likes of Jamie Rodriguez, Jess Jonathan, Shefali Verma, Radha Yadav, all performed very well and admirably for the Delhi side during the course of the tournament. And they were deserving finalists and finished with the silver medal this time. And hopefully, they would like to go to the next level in the next season. And the third team that reached the playoff was the UP Warriors, led by the Australian powerhouse Alisa Healy, the better half of Mitchell Stark. I think they also played very well during the course of the tournament and deservingly won their spot in the playoffs with some quality cricket. And the two teams left uh, that were left behind and could not make the playoffs were RCB and Gujarat Giants. I think the fortunes of RCB in this season mirrored those of the men's team, wherein they had a top-heavy batting order, and unfortunately, the likes of Smriti Mandana, who was the costliest player in the auction, and maybe that might have weighed her down during the course of the tournament. Did not hit her straps running at all during the course of the tournament, and that was a big loss for them. The Sophie Devine, sparked briefly in the tournament, but would have wanted to be more consistent. And the likes of Richa Ghosh, and some of the other established players in the RCB lineup, like Alice Perry, um, also, were intermittent as far as their form was concerned, and they could not collectively perform as a team. And I think one of the Achilles heels for them was their bowling lineup, just like the men's team. But hopefully, they will learn from this experience and come back a stronger team in the next season, and we can see a more competitive league. And finally, the Gujarat Giants, a new team again. And I think um, they unfortunately lost their captain Beth Mooney on day one of the tournament due to an injury, and I think that sort of hampered their plans right throughout the tournament. And later on as well, they were very, very confused as to who should be their overseas player picks. And they did not play the players in form, which was surprising. They dropped the likes of Sophia Dunkley despite her performing well, and gotten Laura Woolward. And they were struggling to get their combination right during the tournament, due to which there were a lot of uncertainties in their playing 11. And Sneha Rana was filling in for Beth Mooney during pretty much majority of the tournament, and it was a new experience for her as well, which will hold her in good stead going forward. And they can come back much more stronger. They would have expected more out of somebody like Ash Gardner, uh, their Aussie talent, uh, but could not happen. So overall, we saw a good amount of cricketing action from all these five teams during the course of these 4 weeks. And one telling fact was that, out of the 10 top run getters, only two were Indians, and out of the top 10 bowlers, only two were Indians. So that goes on to show how the established international stars performed and lived up to their billing. And I think that is one point of improvement, I would say, the Indian batswomen and bowlers will look to uh, improve in the next season, because you want more and more Indian talent to come forward. Like I mentioned, their biggest advantage was uh, rubbing shoulders with these international players, and just by watching them and observing them, they will get to learn a lot, which will, hold them in good stead. Haley Matthews turned out to be the most valuable player in the tournament, and just goes on to show that she came up in the accelerated round of the auction at the fag end and was not even one of the top picks or first choice picks for any of the franchises show. So it just goes on to show that, one should never count a player out no matter what stage of auction they enter. And she was brilliant with both the bat and the ball. That's why she turned out to be the MVP winner at the end of the tournament. And the likes of Amelia Kerr and Sophie Devine from New Zealand made themselves uh, pretty apparent during the course of the season. And Marizan Kaap and Shabnam Ismail, Laura Woolward represented South Africa in the league and gave a good amount of themselves. I think the stars were obviously the Aussies and a couple of English girls over there. Um, and it goes on to show why Australia is a leader in women's cricket and why they have been so consistent and the team to beat over there, right from Meg Lanning to the youngsters like Grace Harris, Talia McGrath, who are upcoming cricketers for Australia, proved that the next generation also is pretty much ready to take on the mantle, and uh, they are the team to beat as far as the international stage is concerned. Um, Finally, to wrap it up from my end, the couple of Indian youngsters who performed very well and could be on the horizon of the Indian cricket team were Saikai Shak, who bowled very well for the Mumbai Indians. Um, I would like her to spin the ball much more when she's bowling. She spins it vigorously when she holds the ball in her hand before her delivery strike, but of the pitch, hardly seen her spin the ball. But she's been very consistent with the line and length. Shikha Pandey, not a youngster but a veteran, came back amicably well after being dropped from the national side. She was in the recent World Cup squad but did not get to play more games in there. But she did very well and was one of the top 10 wicket takers and played for Delhi Capitals. Uh, Radha Yadav, she's a live wire in the field. I call her the Ravindra Jadeja of the women's cricket team, and just goes on to show how valuable she was with the bat in the final because of the last wicket partnership. It gave Delhi something to bowl at in that final. Parsavi Chopra caught my imagination playing for UP Warriors, upcoming leg spinner who played in the under 19 World Cup winning squad as well. I think she is one for the long haul, along with the likes of Shreyanka Patil, who was very good for RCB with both bat and ball. So I think um, these are some very, very impressive players, and they will develop a lot by playing domestic cricket in India and also the WPL. And I think that's the biggest takeaway. And the final point I would like to say is that one piece of improvement that I've time and again said about the national team as well is that the fitness and fielding standards need to improve a lot. There were innumerable occasions where there were straightforward catches missed and straightforward balls missed while ground fielding was done, and a lot of freebies in the form of boundaries and sixes were given. And most of the times, the culprits were the Indian fielders in that regard. So I think if India want to be a world beater in the women's game and regularly challenge the likes of the Australians, the English, New Zealanders, and South Africa, I think we have to field well, can catch well, as that's turning out to be our problem area. We have managed to compete very well as far as the bowling and the batting skills are concerned, but this is one area of concern. The classic example of that was how Australia won that semi-final game against India by a mere 5 runs, and they saw two or three important stops at the boundary where fielders were throwing their bodies on the line and stopping those runs, and that made the difference in the end. So uh, having good amount of fitness trainers for all the franchises I think should be the prerogative of BCCI, so that they can provide those training drills and schedules to all these international players as well as the upcoming youngsters, so that they can uh, put these things into their routine and develop themselves to be physically strong and physically fit as far as the international standards are concerned. So, all in all, a great beginning to the WPL, and I can see that the seed has been sown and it can only grow up to great heights going forward. Uh, so that's my take on the WPL, Ravi. Any thoughts from your end?
Oh yes, I mean, very well put, Paya. I mean, I think, uh, of course, I think a lot of it statistically or what necessarily happened in terms of events was very well covered. I just had few pointers here and there, probably in terms of what really went well, what didn't go bad, what didn't go good. At the same time, what can go better perhaps in the future as well. So, I mean, I think to start off, right, I honestly expected many more close games. It's not that the teams were heavily, I mean, there's a disparity in terms of how teams were there, but there's some element of toss playing a role as well. So of course, nonetheless, I mean, I really wanted to see some more close games, but What disappointed me a lot more is the fact that the Indian players were not necessarily up to the mark. Um, I mean, see, no one's made kind of you know offering a favor or kind of doing a favor to anyone with this WIPL. It's still a very economically prudent or a decision taken by BCCI to kind of expand its wings and kind of not just. I mean, there's no angle of inclusivity or something. I mean, it's just the new era wherein the amazing talent that we see across the globe in terms of women cricket needs a bigger pedestal to kind of showcase itself. While that necessarily happened in WPL, what kind of disappointed me was with the way the Indian performances were there. I mean, the start of Indian batters, pretty bad, right? Like they scored probably around 2,500 runs at just 17 average, and when you compare that with all the overseas players, despite the limitations, they averaged out at about say 33 or 34. And same goes with the bowling, right? Yeah, Indian women fared at 34 average, just picking 91 wickets. And then the overseas bowlers were, they kind of had some tricks up their sleeves, picked about 150 wickets at, 22.4 average. Nonetheless, I mean, they did bowl more overs, but, the averages do suggest something, and it can't be denied that, we kind of wanted to see more fireworks from, superstars like Smriti, Mandana, and more, to be honest. So that's where I think, uh, I mean, it's not even a learning curve. As long as I mean, as far as the tournament is concerned, I think it's organized really well. Maybe, format wise or structure wise, or kind of like you rightly told, in terms of including more cities, I think there's a lot of tasks to do probably in the future. So, I mean, what I'd like to see is probably another team, to be honest, because there's so much talent. That has kind of gone unsold. And I wanted to see Chamari Tapatu, Susie Bates or Danny Watt, and Tammy Beaumont for that matter too, and many more Indian players that could have necessarily kind of given a tough battle out there. But I think a sixth team would naturally be good, with the top three getting qualified and whatnot. So, and similarly, like you rightly told, I totally agree on the locations part. I think, if not home away, I think we would like to see a WPL game at Chinnaswamy, and I'm pretty sure Bangalore crowd would not disappoint. The same goes with a game at Firozshah Kotla or Gujarat mainly, or Ahmedabad, right? Given they pretty much have their franchisees. So overall, I think even Brabon, or even for that matter, DY Patil, Mumbai did not disappoint. Uh, Great show, but I was kind of not really happy with the DY Patil track after a point. A bit slower. Brabon was surely quicker, but I think we can be picky and choosy. But overall, when you look at it as a tournament, I think it's an excellent tournament that was held, and kudos to BCCI, and all the new age initiatives that were kind of taken, even in terms of the rules for that matter. So I mean, quite welcome, and I'm really happy that this took off at this level, and I just hope it kind of spreads its wing further, and this should happen across with multiple leagues, right? Even maybe 100, or even a PSL women edition, a full-fledged edition at the same time. That the window should be as cramped up, and that would necessarily get in more talent to show what they're capable of. So that's where pretty much that's where my pointers are on the WPL. So just quickly drifting off to the men's tournament that took place, or probably the series, the ODI series between Australia and India. Just to kind of give a brief review from my end, I thought, it's a great reality check, right? Like when you look at it as a, uh, you know towards the end, I felt it was a very good reality check what Australia did back in 2019, winning that series 3-2, right before the World Cup. And I think even now, at this point in time, it is a very welcome reality check. It's just that the gap between the World Cup and this is quite huge in this case, and it gives us kind of enough time to prep up, right? So if you just look at the first ODI, I think Australia started really well, was stable at like 130 for two, and Ravindra Jadeja broke the partnership between Mitch Marsh and Labuschagne. Then it was largely a Pacers show with 7 wickets picked up between Siraj, Shami, and Hardik. And Australia eventually lost 6 wickets for 19 runs. That kind of speaks a lot. And hence India had not had didn't have much on the board to chase, but still at 39 for four, things were not really looking well. But a terrific knock there from KL Rahul and along with HP and Jaddu as well. With the second ODI at Vizag, at 32 for two, I don't think it was too bad after a stable partnership, but only downhill there. And it was depressing to see the way India batted. All 10 wickets pretty much go to the seamers. It looked nice, good movement, nice, pretty good bounce. But what really surprised me with was the fact that in no time Australia also chased it down with no wickets lost, right? And the we got to see what Stark is still capable of. Lethal is the word, and trust me, when if we pretty much have a similar condition probably in October and November, right when the World Cup kicks off, he's gonna test you to the fullest limits. And yeah, I think what necessarily hurt us over the last, I think, 2 to 3 games was the fact that we did not have a bowler who can bowl left, not even probably in the nets for that matter. So I think it's something for India to look on those that aspect. The biggest disappointment was third ODI. I think we pretty much had a chat as well when we were watching Virat play maneuver. To start off with Australia, very sensible batting. Uh, at this because mainly because at any given point in time, a 250 on a Chennai track is actually quite testing. I mean, it reminds me of the 2011 World Cup game between West Indies and India as well. And Australia just purely consolidate. They don't really look for the 300 or the aggressive approach. If you actually look at the scorecard, I think everyone pretty much amassed double digits, and that speaks a lot, right? Like if you're able to get there to 250, 260, you pretty much have everything to defend. And I think India started really well at 146 for two after solid, I think, about 80-run partnership. I I had no clue that we were losing that, but the batting showed no spine, as clear as that. Good to see Virat getting a slow 50, but I think at one point in time, I genuinely thought, okay, there would be some amount of acceleration and we should be seeing it over. But the talk of the series has largely been Surya Kumar Yadav's 3 consecutive golden ducks. And at one point, if it's just 1 or 2 games, you just can say probably it's a coincidence, it happens, and so on and so forth, right? But 3 games, it's definitely worrying. Nonetheless, it's not clear yet if he'll be in the scheme of things for the World Cup. So we would like to see a fit Shreyas Iyer, and maybe also have a left-hand option in Ishan Kishan as well. But I think that the discussion is for a later day when we kind of go through the IPL circus or madness. If I'm hurting IPL fans, and the World Test Championship workload as well, and Asia Cup workload as well, all of this when dealt with, I think we'll be looking at a solid last 15 that we can talk about and say, okay, these are the guys that are going to go onto the field. A much needed reality check, in my opinion. I think we needed that, uh, and we got enough time to kind of fix things. Firstly, to start off with the IPL tournament, the long, heavy, cumbersome, which includes travel across places and which includes 10 teams. So there's good amount of workload, and then it all depends on how the boys are able to kind of get back to the groove, because the focus is on silverware this year, be it the World Test Championship finale, Asia Cup, not very significant though, but the pinnacle, World Cup. So yep, that's my take on the Australia Tour of India ODI series. Baya, what do you feel? What are your views?
Yeah, pretty much agree with whatever you said, Ravi. It was a good reality check ahead of the World Cup, and I think we have got a lot of work to do in the one-day setup. We've not played a lot of one-day cricket since the last World Cup, but that's not an excuse. I think the lack of runs from the top order was a concern in the series, and that has been our strength in one-day cricket, or that has been our strength in the one-day game since the last decade. The likes of Rohit, Dhawan, and Kohli did bulk of the scoring. I think in modern day cricket, that's where the runs have to come from. So I think Rohit and Kohli will feel even more uh, hungry to make sure that they sign off on a high note as far as the ODI game is concerned, because I see this to be their last one day World Cup. And the middle order, the number four conundrum again remains. The injury to Shreyas Iyer did not help, and the replacement in the form of Suryakumar Yadav was also unfortunate in the regard that he created a new world record of sorts of scoring three consecutive golden ducks, which has never happened earlier, or two good balls and um, one delivery which he could have avoided very easily. Um, and in 2019, if you remember, we did not have much of a cushion after top four or top five, with MS Dhoni being that link um, um, in between the top order and the lower order. But now we have the likes of Hardik Pandya, Ravindra Jadeja, who are far more established. And then we have the likes of Shardul Thakur also is going to be in the mix sooner rather than later. So, not to mention KL Rahul, who was very good in that first ODI. But we did not see a convincing batting performance from Team India during the course of this series, which would, sound a bit of a alarm bell, considering this is a home World Cup that is coming up, and this series was played at home. The bowling made a good account of itself, and like you mentioned in the last game, the decider, there were some uncharacteristic shots that were hit by the Indian batsman, which we would have never expected. Normally, you expect that in a chase, once Virat Kohli gets set and scores a half century, he's only going to come back after hitting the winning runs, but that was not to be. Um, and in these cases, the next set of batsmen need to take up the mantle. And I don't know when we are going to resolve our problem against left-arm fast bowling, the likes of Mohammad Amir, Trent Bolt, Mitchell Stark, um, uh, and now Shaheen Shah Afridi, Reece Topley from England. Everybody has troubled us with that angle, especially with the ball that comes in. Like you mentioned, we have very few left-arm options. Why don't we make use of them with whatever we have? Jaidev Unadkar was in this squad, but he hardly got a look in. Arshdeep Singh is there. Even if you don't want to play them in the 11, get them practice. I know we've got this left-arm specialist from Sri Lanka, but how much that helps, I'm not too sure. As far as the results show, it's not helped us much. So the world over is aware of this kind of weakness that we have, and they might look to exploit that. But the pressure will be huge, just like it was in 2011 during the home World Cup, as nothing short of a trophy would suffice as far as the Indian fans are concerned. And again, uh, the problem with 2017 Champions Trophy, 2019 One Day World Cup, and the subsequent T20 World Cups and the World Test Championship final was not getting our playing 11 and the combination right. And I think that's going to be our acid test as well, whether we are willing to put our neck on the chopping block and make sure that we have all the right players we are choosing. The future of Jasprit Bumrah also remains uncertain in that regard. If he's going to be fit enough for the World Cup, and if he's going to be fit enough as well, whether he's going to have those games behind him and prove his fitness and come along. So I think we are going to play not more than say 8 or 9 ODIs leading into the World Cup now. So very little time. The team management is already logged in on the 17 or 18 as per Rahul Dravid. But again, it will be a huge test, and it will be sort of a rounding off for this era of Rohit Sharma and Rahul Dravid. Uh, they did not pass the acid test in the T20 World Cup. So they've got World Test Championship final and then this One Day World Cup to look forward to. And unfortunately or fortunately, these two tournaments are going to decide their fate. How this era will be remembered, I guess, because in India we tend to view success through ICC trophies, which personally for me is not, you know, the be all and end all. Um, because the ICC trophies are being held every year now, it becomes the point of attraction, and especially since we have not won one trophy in the last decade, that is even more concerning as far as the fans are concerned. So yeah, overall, it's a bit of a 50-50 situation, but a lot of questions remain unanswered than answered at this point of time as far as the ODI side is concerned, in my opinion. Um, I think with that, we can give it a wrap on this episode where we discussed the WPL and then India's fortunes in the One Day World Cup in the one day game leading up to that World Cup. Um, Thanks for that discussion, Ravi, and I think we will keep on reviewing the fortunes of the team as we near that showcase event. Do you have anything to add?
Well, nothing more on by. Of course, we'll have more episodes to come. All waiting for IPL 2023. The water.
Well, thanks, Ravi, and thanks to all the listeners. Please do tune in, have a listen, and uh, give us some valuable feedback as well on what's going on well with our podcast and where we can certainly improve. We'll strive our best to do that and make it a much more enjoyable and worthwhile experience for all of you in that regard. Please do like, subscribe, and there's that notification icon so that whenever we have uploaded the new video, you get a notification and can listen into our episodes and also do recommend it to your friends and family um, who love the game. Thank you very much again, and we will see you on the other side with our next episode where we'll review the Pakistan Super League and just concluded Pak Afghan series in the Middle East. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye bye.